Welcome back to Fuzzy Memories from the Road. I am Dustin, and with me is the lovely and talented Miss Brandy Green.
Hello, everyone.
Glad to have everyone back here again. And Brandy, I've been waiting for this case because this was one of my favorite ones for so many reasons. But I think number one had to be our client, as Ty McGee from Texas, I believe, brought us to the gates to hell, the gateway to hell. What was it called?
So it's the Gate to Hell episode of GHI.
Yes, that's right.
And it brought us to the middle of nowhere in the Czech Republic.
Right. The old Castle Houska. It was like a 2.5-hour ride through like a black forest. And all of a sudden there's this huge, like, cube-shaped castle in the middle of nowhere.
Right. And I kind of remember like the backstory, and I don't know if we could ever really validate most of this. It's a common problem with a lot of these places, though, that are so old that there really isn't too much documentation.
Right.
But what I remember is it was built in like just before the medieval era, so like 13th century. And the point, what made it so strange and mysterious was that it was sort of just built in the middle of nothing. There were no waterways, no food source. Like, it was just a very odd placement for a castle like that.
And it was built, of course, over the gate to hell, a bottomless pit that they said in ancient times, dark winged creatures would fly out and scoop up people from the town and bring them back into it. They lowered a man supposedly in there on a rope, and when they raised him up, he was like screaming, and his hair was long and gray, and he aged 100 years. Like all these great old school stories that you really don't get anywhere else.
No. And what was also like almost as great as these insane stories was our client, Ty McGee. And I just remember, so he was the husband of our client that we had in a previous episode. She was the client for the Chesky Krumlov location. So they were husband and wife. And so Ty McGee, another American, who I don't know where he came up with the money to buy this location.
Yeah, I think it was her money. I think she was like of some European wealth or royalty or something.
That would totally make sense.
Yeah.
And I think that they used this place I think they did a lot of like paranormal tours, and that was kind of their niche. Because I remember all of our like eyewitnesses that we had for this location were like super goth.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. They're like the drama club, basically.
Oh, like black lipstick, like, lighting candles, like super into it,
Yeah.
And Ty McGee, he shows up. I don't know. Do you want to talk about this, Dustin?
Ty McGee is such a multifaceted, wonderful person, and like he was a super nice guy. Like the stories we're telling are funny, but he was so nice. Like we're not making fun of him, but it was just like he had that over-the-top theatric part of his persona. And I remember, like, normally, like, we meet the client off camera first, say hello, and then we do the staged hello, like, shake hands thing. But there were so many things. One time he came walking in, and he had 2 dogs and a leather duster. And another time he came in, he was on horseback for some reason. And then when we finally talked to him, he had a cape, like, the whole time, right? Like, what was the thing that he did?
So he goes, "I'm Ty McGee. Welcome." to Castle Houska.
So good. And we all just froze and we're like trying not to laugh. And I remember Dave goes up to him, he's like, "Oh, that was great, but we gotta do it again. Let's cape." And then there was like the second take, and he's like, he's like, "You can stay the night if you dare." It was all this like if you survive nonsense. It was great.
Like, simmer down, we're not most haunted.
Right? So
like
good.
No, he was really nice, and he even lent us one of his dogs. So he had a couple dogs. They were, I don't remember, were they pit bull? What were they? I can't.
I think they were pit bulls. Yeah, I think so. Bobo was my man, though. Bobo's big moment is still one of my favorite stories that I tell from the. Can I tell the Bobo story now before we even talk about the case?
Yep, go for it.
There was one part of the castle where one of Ty McGee's dogs, Bobo, did not like to go. And it was like a small, cramped little space. It was like this little stairwell or whatever. And our director, Dave, is like, "Listen, you guys need to investigate with the dog." And like nobody really wanted to do it. And Barry's like, "Oh yeah, fine. And so Rob and I went along with like the thermal camera, just kind of like walking behind them. And sure enough, Barry goes in the little cubby space, and the dog doesn't like it because it's a small, dank, dark little place. It's probably moldy. Dog sneezes, comes out. And so while they're talking to us about what happened with the dog Bobo is on his own now, and he's walking around the courtyard of Castle Houska over the gateway to hell. And as I see him go over to the tables, I start filming him with the camera because you don't get to film a dog in thermal very often. It's interesting. It's different. And then Bobo lifts his little leg as dogs do. And it looked like as he was urinating, as the temperature was changing in the urine, it looked like he was passing Skittles onto the ground all over the. But then we realized it was all over our DVR cables. And we're like, "Oh, right, we got to wrap those up later. And it's all covered in dog urine." And so we decided not to tell anybody about it. And then Brandy wrapped them up, and we still couldn't say anything, but she knew they were wet and it wasn't raining. But I had the thermal tape, and I remember telling production, when we do the reveal scene, when we do the analysis scene, where we all sit at the table like the Last Supper, I was like, "I'm going to cue this up for Brandy and put it in so she can see it." And I just remember you looking at it going, "That's why you guys were laughing. That's why the cables were wet." It was so good. It was one of my favorite moments.
Cheers to you, Dustin.
Thank you, Miss Green. I shall toast your good humor as well. And to Ty McGee, wherever he may be.
Ty McGee.
Oh, man.
Okay. So, yeah, thanks for that. I definitely have not forgotten Bobo. Yeah, so there were a couple times, I think, jumping ahead to a future episode, I think we utilized the dog again at the Malaspina Castle episode too.
Yeah, I think.
So it wasn't a common thing that we did, but I mean, there is that theory that animals are more perceptive to potential paranormal activity. So
it's just hard to decipher anything like for sure with it,
Well, it's really hard too when they're not your animal.
Right.
You get to know, your animal's behaviors and stuff. And this dog was just kind of like a dumb, like happy-go-lucky dog,
He just wanted to pee on the cables. That's all he wanted.
So you mentioned the claim of the endless gateway to hell.
That went to hell and supposedly occupied by Nazi Germany again during World War II because they wanted to get a supernatural edge on the war because Hitler's upper echelon liked the mystical things.
Yeah, so they did a lot of like really weird experiments and portal like to other dimensions and stuff, all of that at Hrad Houska or Castle Houska. Winged demons, all of that. I just remember their endless pit, the gateway to hell. It was endless, but yet they were able to backfill it with concrete.
Yeah, if you get enough concrete.
I suppose.
Yeah. Imagine all the demons down there in the bottom, like, there's more of this stuff. What is it? Raining gray slop.
who paid for that then? Did they or did hell? Like,
There's
who
probably a
got that bill?
50-50 deal between the country and Satan, of course. They had other weird claims too. That one of their weird claims was a headless horse. There was supposedly a headless horse that was seen outside, a big black barking dog by the gate that would disappear.
Yeah.
And they had a lady too. I think it was, I don't know if it was, I think it was a lady in black that was seen walking through there, which is not normal. Usually it's the lady in white. I think there was supposed to be a lady in a black dress, if I remember.
I remember there were some like ancient paintings or something like frescoes on the wall.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember standing on the gateway to hell with Barry. We had some weird like EMF, spikes and stuff, but I mean, it was what it was. It's not like we got anything, I don't think in relation to that. I remember calling out the devil himself. I got super bored.
As you normally do.
Yeah, no, I got bored. I remember Barry kind of looking at me like, you do your thing. Like, I'll be over here.
So good.
You and Ashley had some experiences up
in the attic space.
Right.
Yeah. And it was, I remember, because one of the other claims was that there was like a black shadowy figure throughout the place. And I remembered when we finished the tour, Ty said we could go wherever we wanted in the castle. And I had seen there was an attic space, even though it wasn't on the tour. And I was like, well, this might be a cool place to check out. And it was, I really want to say this was actually his actual first investigation with us, even though it didn't play that way on TV. It's the first time I remember, at least. And we went up there with Steve Purcell, our camera operator, and audio stayed downstairs because we were just going right into the top there, or he ran his own audio. I don't know if he took the hops for that one. But we didn't get far in there, and it was so dark. And I remember, again, even though it's dark, you can still see variants of color. And I remember seeing like some dark huddled mass in the corner and picking up a rock from like the loose floor and throwing it off the back wall to see if I could scurry it or whatever. And nothing happens, and like this never happens, but I was like, hey, can you throw it back? And this is the only time it came back. And it landed right at Steve's feet. I remember Steve like hopped back, and Ashley was like, I don't want to say she was like scared, but she was definitely like shook up by it. Like, this is your first case, you're in a dark attic with people you don't know, and now a rock just landed at our feet. And I mean, she handled everything really well, but I was like, I need Barry up here because we need the full spectrum camera. And the radios wouldn't work, and so she and Steve went downstairs, and they, of course, we're not supposed to be left alone, but I was like, Steve, I don't want to leave this thing, like, just leave me your rig, like, I'll stay here with it. And then when Barry came up, I remember when he turned the ultraviolet light on, this thing, like, ran across the back of the attic wall and went right through the window, but I remember the window didn't break, obviously, but all the birds outside, like, took off, and it was like, whatever the heck that was, it interacted with the environment, which was just amazing, But then I'm thinking, I was up here for like 10 minutes by myself with it, like just standing there waiting. And it was not the smartest move, but it was a really, like that moment. I don't remember too much of the rest of the case outside of Bobo, but that moment to me was one of my favorite moments ever.
Yeah, honestly, like I don't think and I don't remember, I may have gotten EVPs or whatever, but in terms of like my actual memory of the place, I just remember you having crazy experiences up there and me trying to get some kind of reaction on the gateway and then Bobo peeing on everything. But nothing really happened to me while I was there, which is always frustrating, like for me, because I am a skeptic. It's like just once, like,
right,
just something crazy where it's undisputable, proof that makes me a believer, but nope.
And you call out every demon and devil and everything.
I know.
No. I'm so disappointed.
It really is.
That is great.
Yeah.
Oh, I had another great Ty McGee memory. I was out front, and they were paying him in cash for whatever reason. And I remember
Ty McGee doesn't do bank accounts.
Probably not. And I remember they're like, well, we just need to prove that we gave it to you. And so they took a photo of him, but he like feigned it out and was like smiling at the camera. It was so cheesy and hilarious. I was like, this is perfect. It's so good. I love that guy.
That totally makes sense for him.
Yeah, right. So good.
Yeah, so I'm kind of curious, like there's some of these locations that I still wonder, like, if I went back now, would it be anything like I remember it?
Right.
You know?
That could be our new show. We could go and try. Was this even the place? Like, what happened here? Yeah, Lord. But the case was so like, I mean, I had a really great experience there, but not too much other crazy stuff. But the town, like, we stayed in Prague, which was fantastic.
Yeah, so we did deem this location haunted.
Right.
I do remember. And then yes, so for this, because this place was really out in the middle of nowhere, there wasn't anything near it to stay in. And so we stayed in Prague, which is so cool. Like, I really enjoy Prague. It's a beautiful city, and it's so chock full of like history.
Yeah.
But there's elements of like, oh my gosh.
It's seedy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
It was kind of like one way by day and another way by night, Like,
which is kind of like how I remember Rio de Janeiro. Like, during the day, it's gorgeous, and then at night, it gets really shaky.
Yeah, it's like a nightclub, like at last call.
Yeah, and so in Prague, like, I remember the Charles Bridge with all of the big statues. It's really beautiful. And then they have like musicians along the side that play live music.
I still have, like, Joe Chin and I, like, split the cost of a CD from the syncopated original Prague orchestra. And there's like these 4 old guys sitting on the bridge playing it. I still listen to it on my iTunes. I
have video of them.
Do you really?
I do. I have video from going around that town. Maybe, you know what? What I'll do is leading up to this episode airing, I'll post some of those videos that I still have. But yeah, it was a beautiful city by day. I remember we went to a museum of like death or something, and it was this really weird, like, all the weird ways you can torture someone in this museum. It was like a big tourist spot. Like, of course, only in Prague does this make sense.
Yeah. And they had the clock too, the medieval astronomical clock there that goes off the top of every hour, right? They get
the horloge or whatever they call it.
Yeah, the little skeleton that rings the bell. He's supposed to be death, and then all the saints come out, and all the pickpockets steal all the people's money while they're looking at the clock.
It's so true. I have video of that too. And that thing is really cool because I think the bell tower was constructed in like the 1400s or something. So that has like a ton of history. And then it was like partially destroyed by the Nazis, of course. And then they like redid it to the historical specifications on it and stuff. But it sits in the old town center.
Right.
Because there's a new side of Prague, and then there's the old town.
I remember you go over the Charles Bridge, and there's like a little stone archway that leads you into like the old part. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, I remember they had like a really good restaurant actually in the old town center. Because we were there, I think we were there during like Easter time, because I remember they had like decorations for Easter, and then they had like this blacksmith that was out there like making things. And they had a really good restaurant that, I mean, we've talked about it before, how tough it was trying to find good food. And I just remember, I'm not like a huge like meat eater, like I do once in a while, but I'm very picky. And I just remember I was so hungry, and this place had like this filet mignon with like a garlic butter. it was like the best thing I had eaten in probably like 7 months.
Right. It was the whole town was great. The restaurants were great. The people were awesome. I remember like seeing like the syncopated orchestra on the bridge during the day, the elderly people saying prayers and like rubbing one of the statues all the time. You could get gelato like out of a cart like every 5 feet. There was gelato. It was great. At night, one of my favorite moments on the road. It's the story of it is in one of my books, Kaleidoscope, and I talk about stories from the road from different places. And at night, I was on the Charles Bridge, and I was just sitting there eating ice cream, and there's like elderly people like holding hands, and like young people like making out like in the shadows. And this little old guy comes out, and he had a little table, and he put up these little candles, and he had this like woolen coat and these little round glasses, and he just played the violin, and it was like the most like surreal moment. Like I'm listening to this music like bounce off these old like medieval looking buildings, and there's all these people strolling this bridge, and it's just like looking at the old city, the old town. It was just that was one of my favorite moments, one of my happiest moments, like being on the road was being there at that time. Truly.
You know, that's one of the things that I found about Prague and areas similar to Prague. Like I think we kind of talked about it like in Copenhagen and stuff, but you take these cities that historically have been through hell and back.
Mm.
You know, they had the Nazi invasion and all of that, you know, and you find these little moments today that kind of take you back pre-war to like the simpler times, like the old shoemaker, you know, or the little musicians. And it's just, it's a very weird, like comforting, sweet feeling. I don't know how really to explain it.
It really does feel like you travel through time in those little moments, you know. It's just so cool, so amazing. And then other moments I remember from the road. One of my favorites was going out with Barry. Barry wanted to go out at night to take pictures. He didn't want to go alone, so I was like, great, yeah, I'll go with you, you know. And I stop and get my gelato, and he's taking photos. But now again, at late night, it gets really different in town. And there's a lot of clubs, and there's a lot of adult clubs, and there's dancing in windows and things going on. And as we're walking, some gentleman comes up, and he sees us, and he says some lewd things about different parts of ladies' anatomy, all the things that we can see if we go to this club. So he's one of those like flesh peddlers, like trying to get you go here, and we're like, oh no, you know, we're fine. We keep walking, and the guy like would not stop. Like, no, what are you into? I can find a place. I'm like, Barry, Barry's like, no, we're good. I'm like, and then finally I put my arm around Barry. I'm like, we're together. And the guy like paused for a minute, and Barry's like, God damn it, Mr. P. Come on, I'm like, well, it's fine, you know? And then like we got like 10 steps away, and the guy's like, I've got a club for that. And I'm like, Barry was so like upset with me. But I was like, oh, it's fine, Barry. It's like, let's just trying to get away from this guy, you know? It was so good.
So I remember, again, we had no cars. So we walked a lot in Prague. Like I specifically, like we walked a lot everywhere, but for some reason I remember Prague being like probably the most I think I've ever walked, ever. And beautiful town, beautiful old town, you know, and all the great things we talked about, cobblestone streets. And we're walking, they have like the marionettes, like I bought a Pinocchio, like little thing, and I look over and there's this woman. Do you remember this? She lifted up her skirt and she's standing in the middle of like the town center and she just pees. But it's not just like, you know, a stream of pee. It like gushed out of her and it flooded the whole area. I was like, is she giving birth?
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes you gotta go, Brandy.
So, you know, it's a town of contradictions.
Yeah. Indeed. We have a peeing dog and a peeing lady.
That's a theme.
There's a lot going on. Yep, indeed. The land of golden showers. Castle Houska.
Oh, good old Ty McGee and the lady that peed in the street.
It's a colorful life, Brandy Green, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. No, I did. I enjoyed Prague, and I enjoyed Castle Houska even if I got dog pee all over me.
Could have been worse. Could have been the lady. Oh Lord. Well, I
All
think
right,
we should
well,
probably wrap it there, Brandy, before the stories get worse.
yeah, I think we're good for the Gate to Hell episode. Remember, you can watch all of the GHI episodes for free on the Peacock TV app. It's available on Roku, on your phone. Other places do have it, but I think they charge you. So, you know,
We're all about doing things on the cheap.
yeah, it's true. That's why I still don't. That's why I still don't have a copy of the DVDs.
Me neither.
All right. Well, until next time, Dustin.
Always a pleasure to see you, Miss Green. Thanks everybody for watching us here.
See you later.
Yeah.
Hello.
Nice. Stop these updates. Try tomorrow. I'm having a Mad Elf Ale. Have you ever had this stuff? Comes out around Christmas time. It's brewed with cherries and honey.
I'm
It's
not
got,
an ale. I'm not an ale person.
it's got like triple alcohol. Though. It's really good. Whoa.
I am drinking whiskey, so
There you go.
we're just gonna do happy hour this episode.
Yeah. Join us next time when we just have drinks. All right, hold on one sec. All right, get a coaster. You want to mark up the furniture?
I forgot I had the Chesky Krumlov case file and the Wicklow Goal, but that's fine because the Wicklow Goal one or the Rockland Island one was the ugly blue folder.
Oh.
But I have this one, so that's fine.
All right.
So
That Miss Brandy Green.
Czech Republic again. Ty McGee, Cape Guy.
The best guy.
I remember all of his friends that we used for eyewitnesses were like goths.
Yeah.
Like super goth with the big like cross chains and the black nails and the black lipstick. Like,
yeah.
This was where Bobo the dog peed on all the cords and I had to wind them up.
I still tell that story at almost every event.
Thank you for that. This is the one with the PA that we had that Dave Hobbs was like into that always had her butt crack showing.
Yep, the ukulele girl.
We had to eat or whatever, and we were too far out in the middle of nowhere to like order anything. So she tried to make spaghetti, but the noodles were undercooked, and she just put in a can of tomato soup.
Tomato sauce. Yeah, it was awful.
Tomato. And it was cold.
Yeah, cold tomato paste and undercooked pasta.
Yeah. So anyway, I stood on the gateway to hell that they said couldn't ever be filled because it was endless, but they backfilled it with concrete.
Right. Was that in the center of the courtyard?
It was like in an off room. Because this place was built like a cube. It's
a big square, yeah.
Right, and they had like a chapel that apparently was used to keep whatever was there in.
Yeah.
And you and Ashley were like throwing stones or something. I don't know. I just remember she got super freaked out.
Did, yeah. This is one of the ones I use in my Spirits of the World lecture. So, like, being in the attic with her and the stone coming back at Steve Purcell's feet, like, it was really, like, a really cool time. It was a good time, sure. But, yeah, she was really freaked out by it. I think
she really was.
Real case with us.
Yeah. Okay, well, I mean, I think that we're good with that. I mean, it was in the middle of nowhere, so it's not like but we stayed in Prague.
Yeah, we stayed in Prague.
So we have Prague stories. I have some Prague stories.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you want to intro this one?
Yeah, I'll intro this one, sure.
So it's called Gates to Hell.
Gates to Hell. Dun, 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 dun.